As with any long-running franchise, the MCU has had their ups and downs. But sometimes you hear a criticism that makes such little sense that you just can't help but hit that downvote button. Here, I've gathered 5 of the dumbest, most nonsensical talking points we often hear about the MCU. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. For each one, I'm going to describe what the criticism is and then proceed to tell you why it makes no sense. Let's get right into it with criticism number 1. The MCU hasn't set up Doctor Doom enough. The other day, I heard a bloke complain that Marvel hasn't done enough to build up the Doctor Doom character going into Avengers Doomsday. And I saw another bloke complain that they didn't feel the impact of the Reed and Doctor Doom scene in the new trailer because they didn't build up that friendship in the new Fantastic Four. Now, quick question, do you guys remember when Stanley Kubrick directed a rom-com to show us how Jack and Wendy Torrance met before throwing us into The Shining? No, that didn't happen because he didn't need to do that. He simply started the movie with the 2 characters already married and expected us to understand that they have history. Criticism number 2. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the least accurate comic book version of the character. There's no superhero who has more internal fighting within their fan base than Spider-Man. You only have to spend 5 minutes on social media to see an argument about which Spider-Man is the most authentic portrayal of the character. And with Brand New Day having just grossed $1 billion, the Maguire and Garfield stans have brought out their pitchforks to claim that Holland's Spider-Man is the most unfaithful portrayal of the character, whether it's because he uses too much tech, or he isn't broke enough, or he doesn't work at the Daily Bugle. And the reason this criticism is silly is that it cherry picks which aspects of the character can be changed and which aspects can't. Look, every live action Spider-Man has changed things about the character, and for some reason these Maguire fans have an issue with Holland using technology but have no issue with Maguire's Spider-Man having organic webbing. These Maguire fans have an issue with Tony Stark being Spider-Man's mentor but have no issue with Sandman being Uncle Ben's killer, which last I checked is nowhere to be found in the comics either. Criticism number 3. The X-Men make no sense within the MCU. The MCU has been teasing the introduction of the X-Men for years, but it wasn't until Sadie Singh popped up as Jean Grey that shit finally got real. In fact, we just got the main cast announced at D23, and the MCU's first X-Men movie is coming out in 2028. Now, if you're not aware, the X-Men, as stated by Stan Lee, were created as an allegory for racism and the civil rights movement. Unlike Spider-Man, who was bitten by a radioactive spider, or Captain America, who took some steroids, the X-Men were born with a gene which gives them powers, and the public hates them because of it. And because of that, you'll hear a lot of people say the X-Men make no sense in this universe. The MCU's already established that people love superheroes, so how could the public be discriminated against Professor X while simultaneously cheering on Spider-Man? That makes no sense. And I agree. It makes no sense to hate someone for being born with powers while loving someone who acquired powers later on. But you know what else doesn't make sense? Hating someone because of their skin color or the place they were born. And that's why I side-eye anyone who makes this criticism, because it implies that there's a form of racism and xenophobia that does make sense, when really none of it does. Now, staying on the X-Men topic, let's talk about criticism number 4. Marvel movies ruin actors' careers. I'm not sure if you heard, but there's a little movie called Obsession that kinda blew up in popularity and saw the birth of a star and actress Indy Navarrete. Just the other day, it was announced that Navarrete will be playing Rogue, a member of the X-Men. And if you know anything about Marvel contracts, you'd know that means she's obliged to do about 5 or 6 of these ones. And because of that, I've seen a lot of comments along the lines of, oh, here's another great actor who's now gonna have their career swallowed by the Marvel machine. Implying that Indy Navarrete is gonna do nothing but make Marvel movies for the next 10 years, and that's silly for 2 reasons. The first first reason is, it's just false. Florence Pugh has starred as Yelena Belova in 6 projects, but that hasn't stopped her from doing 12 non-Marvel projects within that same time. Joseph Quinn is playing Johnny Storm, and that dude is filming not 1, not 2, but 4 awful looking Beatles movies right this very moment. If anything, that sounds like a guy who has too much time on his hands, not too little. And second of all, it doesn't take into account how Marvel can actually launch a person's career, how it can propel them forward and help them get greenlit projects that they otherwise wouldn't have. Let's not forget, Robert Downey's career had 1 foot in the grave before Marvel hired him as Iron Man. Now, number 5 is the criticism I hear most, but it's also one of the most inaccurate, which is that every Marvel movie is the same. Now, I'm sure you've heard this one, the people who hate the superhero movie because apparently they're all the same. An opening fight scene, the hero fights a villain who's an evil version of them, shit hits the fan, the hero loses, comes back stronger, beats the villain, and we all live happily ever after. And if you're one of those people, then the good news is you can identify a traditional 3-act structure. The bad news is that this structure exists in every blockbuster movie, not just Marvel ones. In fact, Jurassic Park uses the exact same structure, and that's a dinosaur movie. In fact, if you boil it down to its essentials, frickin' Good Will Hunting follows this structure. Will Hunting suffers some setbacks, loses relationship at the midpoint, and then decides to get his act together, address his trauma, and then rise toward the girl as the movie ends, and so too does this list. Thanks for watching, and remember, this is just my list, and I would love to hear yours. So hop in the comments and let us know what criticisms you've often heard about Marvel movies, and whether or not they deserved. And if you're interested in seeing the part 2 of this video, hit the subscribe button to keep up. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.